you. Before I start, I just realised I hadn't turned my mobile phone on to silent, so just on my Sergeant of Arms hat on, and just remind anyone who hasn't to please turn their phones on to silent. Okay, good evening, Toastmasters, Toastmaster of the day, guests, distinguished guests. The title of my speech tonight is Tale of Four Decades. The reason why I chose the title is because my life can be clearly explained over 4 decades, being the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the new millennium. It just so happens that also coincides with the age groups of my formative years, my teens, my 20s, my 30s, and also I've lived pretty much in 4 different parts of the world over those 4 decades. So starting with my formative years, I was born in Dublin, Ireland, the capital of Ireland, and grew up in a town called Bray, County Wicklow, which is about an hour's drive outside the city of Dublin. Bray was a very family-friendly town, and I have very fond memories growing up there. Some of the memories that I have is playing a lot of sports at school, playing and hanging out with a lot of the kids in the neighborhood, and with a lot of extended family, a lot of cousins. And like many young children, sports heroes, I had sports heroes at the time, and I recall growing up wanting to play rugby for the Irish rugby team. Moving on to the next decade, which came in the 80s, Ireland was going through a recession in the early 1980s, and my family decided to move to Australia on the basis that they expected that would give a better quality of life and also would give greater opportunities for myself and my 2 brothers. So off we went to Australia, moved to a place called the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. The Gold Coast is situated on the east coast of Australia, about halfway up the east coast. So obviously this was a pretty drastic change for a kid of 12 years old. Some of the memories I have at the time, some of the changes that I experienced were obviously the weather. I mean, moving from quite an extreme cold climate to quite a warm climate, tropical warm temperatures all year round. I recall at school, just going to school, the uniforms that we used to wear were completely different. Having moved from a country where I was wearing coats, gloves, scarves, and suddenly I found myself going to school in Australia wearing shorts, a short sleeve shirt, and a big wide brim hat to keep the sun off myself. One of the big obstacles, or the big memories I have of the move to Australia was getting used to the Aussie accent. And I'd just like to share a story with you to give you an example of that experience. I remember being at the beach with my parents one weekend and going up to a guy behind the shop and asking for an ice cream, and I said, can I have a heart ice cream, please? And the chap behind the counter said, sorry mate, don't understand what you're saying. So I replied, can I have a heart ice cream, please? And he goes, what are you saying, mate? So I sat there and I used my limited wisdom, having only been in the country a short period of time. I said, can I have a heart, please, mate? To which I got the reply back, oh, you wanted a heart, why didn't you just ask for a heart ice cream in the first place? So there were some of the obstacles that I had to tackle, but got past them, moved on to probably a bit more focused academic life, which was good news for my parents. Continued to play a lot of sports, played a lot of rugby and surfing and golf. That's why I took up golf. Continued on after that on to university. Went to a university called Bond University, also on the Gold Coast, which was a great experience, to be honest, because quite multicultural background, so gave me a great opportunity to meet with many different nationalities and befriend people from all parts of the world. Near the end of university, we had family friends visit us and stay with us for a couple of weeks, and they were from Ireland. And it was at that time I developed a yearning to go back to Ireland. So after university, I decided to go back to Ireland, which brings me to the 1990s and my 20s. So I moved back to Ireland, fresh with my Bachelor of Commerce degree, went on the job market, got myself a job in Price Waterhouse, the accountancy firm, later became PricewaterhouseCoopers. Worked there for 7 years, worked myself up to audit manager, and enjoyed my 20s in Ireland. It's a very social country. Enjoyed playing golf on weekends, enjoyed travelling around Europe, enjoyed having a couple of secondments over to New York. Also had quite a few challenges with study and with having to study at night and having to work long hours, but they were all good personal development experience. By the end of my 20s, I was getting itchy feet, and I felt I had a good CV, I had good experience, but what I didn't have was any money, and I had no money and no assets. So I started looking for jobs internationally, did interviews in the likes of Caymans, Bermuda, but ended up, of all places, working for a dairy company in Saudi Arabia, Almarai. Many of you probably know it from the supermarkets here. I worked in Saudi for 6 years for Almarai, across a number of finance functions. It was a great experience, to be honest. Many people often ask me, how did you do 6 years in Saudi? How did you experience it? The truth is, I actually had quite a good time. The compound life was pretty much like living on a resort, very social, and great travel experience. Inevitably, I ended up back in Dubai after that. I've been in Dubai 3 years now. Met my fiancée here and getting married in November. And that pretty much brings me to the end of my tale of 4 decades. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to my speech tonight.